Hey guys, Sodahar here. Thank you for joining. In this video, we're going to learn how to manage multiple versions of Python, and we're also going to learn how the Windows path variable works. Now, if you're new to Python, you're most likely going to first go to python.org, download the latest version of Python, install it, and then any modules offering extra functionality that you need, you're just going to do with your system version of Python. So let's go with Python version. Executing Python in the command prompt here is vital to managing all your projects in Python. And in fact, from now on, we're basically going to be living here in this command prompt. So you might as well get used to it. So Python 3.9, as you can see, is already installed. And you could also add extra functionality by adding modules, right? This, I presume, is something that you already have some basic knowledge of. That's why I'm not going to get into it into too much detail. So let's go with pip install and let's install some module. Let's go, for example, to XLRD. This one allows you to read from Excel files. Very useful if you have a large Excel file with, let's say, all your customers, clients, whatever. You need to parse this information and use it in some way. Well, Python will, this Python module will allow you to do this. The default Python will not. So you need to install modules in order to unlock functionality for Python. Let's go ahead and install it. Well, this is already there. Let's see what we have. Pip list. Great. This is all the modules that we already have. We're going to get into more detail about the virtual environment later. But for now, let's say that down the line you have your new version of Python and you want to use some module that doesn't work with Python 3.9. This just as an example, because I'm pretty sure this will not work. Pip install pygame. Now, will this work on 3.9? No, because this module doesn't. The modules and the Python itself are written by different people. This is why there's going to be some clashes. So in this case, you're probably going to need an earlier version of Python. What are you going to do then? Well, you go back, you scroll down, you find an earlier version, download, install, and now you have more than one version. Nice. But what can you do with this? If you type Python here, or pip install, or whatever, you still get the old version. Right? Well, you need to access, you still get the new version. You need to access the old version. Well, you probably already know about this, especially because if you have watched some YouTube videos, they will tell you during the installation of Python, don't forget to add it to your path variable in Windows. Well, what is this path variable? Let's find out more. Open System, Advanced System Settings, Environment Variables, the path variable right here. Now, the path variable is just a long string of different directories in Windows that is semicolon separated. That's all it is. If you open it in Windows like this, then it changes the orientation. Now it's from top to bottom instead of from left to right. But what it does essentially is when you're in your command prompt right here and you type any keyword, let's say you type Python, but let's say you type Explorer or something else that is already there. Oh, sorry, I misspelled it. Well, it opens Explorer. The same way that when you type Python, it starts Python. How does this work? You type Python here in the command prompt, and what Windows does is it comes here to its path variable, and then it starts going from left to right, or from top to bottom, entering all of these directories and asking, hey, guys, is anybody here named Explorer, or is anybody here called Python? And if there's a python.executable in any of those .exe, a Python executable in any of those directories, well, then it gets executed. And it goes, like I said, from top to bottom in this case. So it went into this folder first and asked, hey, is there a Python there? And it found it, sure enough. There you go. There you go, a python.exe, an executable Python. The application is there. So when you start it, it starts. It went to this folder and it started it. Now, if you notice here, I already have an older version of Python as well, 32-bit for some reason. I'm not sure why I installed this one. It's for illustrative purposes only. So, will I be able to execute Python 3.8? Yes, all I need to do is just move this up a little bit like this, or left. And what's happening now is Windows is going to go into this folder first. And if it finds 3.8 there, if it finds a python.exe there, it's going to execute it, and this happens to be the Python 3.8. So let's go back. we have to close and restart the command prompt, or it doesn't know. So let's go with Python version. Oh, actually, sorry, we forgot to click on OK. We have to click on OK. One more time. Python version. Nice. Now we're in 3.8.5. Well, there are some hacky ways for you to be able to execute different Python versions in the same command prompt, but I wouldn't recommend it. Still, let's just, for illustrative purposes, show, Windows. For illustrative purposes, let's just show how this would work. Let's go back to programs here, Python, and let's go to this, the older version of Python. Well, what we could do is just basically rename the executable. Remember, we could just call it Python 38. I don't advise you to do this because this is going to break a bunch of things, but just to illustrate how the path variable works. Well, now this is called Python 38. Let's close our command prompt, open it again. Let's go with Python version. Well, now we get 3.9. Why? Because let's go back to the path variable. Sorry, path variables right here. To the path variable right here. And as you could see, we have 3.8 on top, but we still get 3.9 when we type Python. Well, what happens here is you type Python in the command prompt, and then it goes into this directory and asks, hey, is anybody here called Python? And Windows says, well, no, here we only have Python 38.exe. So that doesn't get executed. It goes down here, there's nobody called Python here. Then it goes in here, in this directory, and sure enough, there's a Python.exe there. So it gets executed. But let's say that you have an older file and it's just scripting. It's just a bunch of small scripts. It's not a big project. And you just need to be able to access it very quickly from the command prompt. Well, in this case, why don't we type Python 38 version? And sure enough, you get the other Python as well. Why? Well, because it went here. It asked, is anybody here called Python 3.8.5? Sorry, is anybody here called Python 38? And when Windows was like, yeah, we have a guy here called Python 38. So it got executed. So this is the in essence how the path variable works. In the other videos now, we're going to discuss in more detail how to create virtual environments with different versions and install different versions of different modules there, which can get a little bit complicated. This is why I've also prepared a quick illustration here of what a usual Python setup might look like. But now that we understand how the path variable works, we can move forward. Thank you for watching, and eventually I'll upload another one.